Hey guys, Robert here. I'm here with my buddy John Maryman. He owns a company called Cajun Flame, a fabricating shop up here in Talkeetna, Alaska. John, how's it going today?
Oh, it's coming along pretty well. Staying pretty busy here lately.
It's a beautiful spring, or I guess it's now summer day here in Alaska. No rain yet, so that's always important. But let's talk a little bit about what you do and what you're all about. Tell our listeners here, our viewers, who you are and how you got involved with this type of work.
Well, we're a custom metal fabrication company. If it's metal, we'll work on it and build it. Do boat repairs. We build boats from scratch, airboats, jet boats, do truck beds, bumpers, just about any kind of metal fabrication.
So how did you get started in this? What's your background?
Well, I started welding back when I was 14 years old, and then went to work as a commercial diver offshore and all over the world welding, and then BP brought me to Alaska. I was a chief inspector for one of the fields in Dead Horse for a while, and then we decided to just do it on our own.
So how long have you been up here in Alaska?
For 14 years.
14 years, about the same time that we've been up here. Talkeetna, for folks that are watching, we're pretty much at the doorstep of Denali right here, about an hour and a half or so from Anchorage. Why this place? Why did you choose right here?
We drove all over the state, and we just decided that this was far enough away from town, but close enough for if we need to get something.
There you go. So I reached out to you last fall. I just purchased a 2020 Gladiator because my Toyota Tundra was on its last leg, and I said, hey, can you build me a bed so we can build a box? And you came out, you did some measurements. Walk us through that a little bit. When you first saw the truck itself, what did you think about? Did you think this was possible? You know, what was your idea when you thought about it?
Well, if it's metal, it's possible. We can make it happen. We just, took some measurements off your old truck to make that box fit on this truck, and we just had to do a little extension to the back end to make it long enough, and which then encompassed having to do some suspension upgrades for the extra weight and the length on it.
Yep, we had to do a lot of suspension work, and we're going to do a quick walk around here in just a few minutes. But tell us about the build itself. How long did it take you? Tell us a little bit about that itself.
Well, the build itself probably took a total of 3 weeks off and on between getting some material and some parts, but they can be done if everything's available in about a week's time frame from start to finish. Getting the old bed off and then getting all the new lights wired up and such. So
I remember when we were out here, it just snowed for the first time, a big dumping, and we brought the dog box over on the Tundra, and we said, okay, let's see if we can get this thing moved today. And you have a full jack system in your shop. That was a beast, wasn't it? That thing was heavy.
That existing box is very, very heavy. It took 2 of the hoists in the shop to pick it up. One wouldn't do it by itself, so we had to use 2 of the overhead hoists to get it off and then get it back on.
Yeah, and by the time we took it off, we had it sitting there, and we quickly realized I couldn't drive it home. The shocks and the springs just weren't going to work, so we had to take it back off, take it to the shop, and of course here in Alaska you got to wait for everything on shipping. So we had to wait another couple of weeks almost to get some springs in. Got those springs in, brought it back, and finally got it all fixed up. But we also had to jack the box up a little bit as well. You used quite a bit of spacers, didn't you?
Yeah, we had to come up with another 3 inches of spacers to get enough clearance on the tires compared to this frame to the old truck frame to get the height we needed.
So guys that are not familiar, this is the same size bed as on the on our Tundra, and it's even the same box. We did take the box apart earlier this spring and took a lot of the 3/4 inch wood off and put 1/2 inch off to make it quite a bit lighter. But man, there was a lot of work to do this. What else did you do to the truck besides the bed? I know we had some other things done as well.
Yeah, we modified the front and rear bumpers. We built the rear bumper to put your swing arms for your gang lines on them. Wired up all the LED lights and for the fuel filler system on it.
And I know you do work all the time, but did you have any real struggles with this build at all, or is it just kind of just straightforward?
It was fairly straightforward. It's just getting the weight management on it was the struggle.
So you had mentioned, John, that you've done quite a bit of work for other people. I found you through a musher friend on Facebook. Her name is Molly, and I know that you did some work for her. And you just recently did some work for a friend of mine, Sean Williams. You built a bed for him on his truck. So it seems to be that people are recognizing that, at least in the mushing community, that's who we know, that this kind of thing can be done. So many people just build boxes on the top of their bed, you know, that one row style, and that's sort of the setup. But now people are getting creative, aren't they?
Yep, definitely. With flatbeds, you can, you know, expand your box and have 2 rows instead of 1 row.
Right. I remember earlier in the winter you said that you were thinking about designing the perfect dog box. I think you said that on Facebook. Tell our listeners and our viewers, what do you think that means in the mushing world?
Well, that's where we're still taking some input on what people's likes and dislikes are to try to encompass them and get one that's lighter, if possible, with some insulation in it, and so they can actually heat and cool the dogs on the travels.
Okay.
So, and then make them a little more weather resistant.
Would you envision it to be a metal dog box itself, metal or aluminum or whatever,
aluminum,
instead of wood?
Yep, to keep the weight down.
Yep. I know a lot of people are going that route, especially today with much better materials and all of that. And so when you're thinking about that, do you have a vehicle in mind that would work best for? Would it be a 1/4 ton, 1/2 ton, full ton, what?
We can make them where they'll work on a 1/2 ton and above. I mean, I believe we can get the weight knocked down 400 or 500 pounds off of a standard size box to make them more available to be able to use on a 1/2 ton with maybe some spring helpers, because when you throw 14 dogs in them, that alone adds a pretty fair amount of weight.
Yeah, when you're thinking 50-pound dogs, that's an extra 700 pounds right off the top, which is a lot of weight. When you're thinking about that 1/2 ton, if your box is 500 or 600 pounds and you have 700 pounds of dogs with no gear, you're already at that 1/2 ton, aren't you?
Yep, you're already at your limit.
So before we do our walk around, John, I know that you do some other work as well. Like you said, if it's metal, you can build it. You're also starting out to build some trail drags as well. I know I reached out to you and hope to do that here in the off season, so we have one ready to go. But tell us a little bit about that before we go.
We're working on some trail groomers that are adjustable, and they'll also working on a drag grater for driveways and stuff that can be a similar type setup, but it can be pulled behind an ATV or a side-by-side to help straighten out driveways and such. So it'll have the perforated grater blades on them. So
okay. Last thing here, John, how can people connect with you? Where are you at? Do you have a Facebook page on website? What?
We have a Facebook page at Cajun Flame, which you can get all our contact information from there. It's pretty easy to find.
Well, I can't give this guy a higher recommendation than if at all possible. This guy does one hell of a good job. That's why I wanted to sit down with him today. John, let's take a look at the box here, and you can tell our listeners about what you used and what we did with it, and we'll go from there, okay?
All right. On this particular one, we used 2x3 square tubing, which we can use channel iron or whichever way, and we built some mud flaps, fender flares, whatever you want to call them, in the front to keep the tires from slinging debris all the way up the side of the vehicle. A small headache rack just to keep, if you're using the box temporarily, you can load other stuff on it to keep things off the back of the vehicle. We coped out the sides to give a little bit extra wheel clearance. We got a couple aluminum toolboxes we fabricated to fit underneath in the space that was available to try to maximize all our space, and would use all LED lights on everything. The rear bumper is one of our heavy duty varieties of 4x6 rectangular tubing with a built-in receiver hitch and tow bar. And for the most part, that's the beds as we make them, and they can be customized any kind of way, shape, or form.
What is the platform, John? What's on the bottom of the bed?
On the bottom of the bed, it's 3-inch channel iron cross members tied into the 2x3 rectangular tubing. Sometimes we'll use 4-inch channel iron runners and 3-inch cross braces. Just depends on how heavy the duty needs to be, and if it's a heavier truck, we might make it a little bit stouter depending on if the person's going to use the bed for other things than just their dog box. They want to use it for regular heavy work as well.
And what did you use for the bed of the bed? Did you use 3/4 inch plywood or what?
3/4 inch treated marine grade plywood on this one.
Okay. And you had talked about having to jack it up a little bit with spacers. What type of metal did you use for that? And what did you use, 3 inches worth down there?
Yes, that's square tubing we use for these particular spacers because of the size of them. If they're just small spacers, we'll just use aluminum if it needs 3/8 or 1/2 inch thick or so spacer, but the bigger ones we'll go with square tubing spacers.
Let's go around front and see what we did with that. You did some modification and fabrication to the bumper.
Yeah, we added an additional tow bar receiver hitch to the front end, and also added the swing outs for the gang lines.
Can you show us that, John?
And these swing out match the rear ones to run the gang line down the side.
And what type of material did you use for that?
This is all just 1 inch square and 1.5 inch square.
Okay. And you said that you put a receiver hitch on there as well. Also installed that front bumper, took off the stock bumper to be able to use that, and hooked up all the lights and all of that. Anything else you did to this, John? I know, oh, one other thing. Tell us a little bit about, let's go around the side here, open up the gearbox, and tell us about that gas tank thing.
Yeah, we had to kind of fabricate a spot to run the fuel filler neck up inside the gearbox, and then wired up the power to the lights from the truck's battery to run all the lights in the rear.
All right, guys, John Maryman from Cajun Flame right here in Talkeetna, Alaska. John, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.